I think this is the most important video that you need to watch today. Watch this video and then we'll talk about it.
The 3-minute and 50-second clip that I'm about to show you is well worth the watch in its entirety. And to me, it's scary as fuck. Now, it would be different if this guy were like, you know, an associate pastor at Greg Locke's church or something. But he's not.
Jim, you and I know we've talked about this. This is an inflection point. We're at a civilizational moment. The only question is God going to allow our nation to enter a time of judgment for our collective sins, which his mercy and grace have held back for some time? Or is he going to give us one more chance to restore the foundations and return to him? This is going to be a shaking that might help to answer that question. And so what we need right now, what collectively as a nation, we need to turn to him. We need a revival, obviously, which is what everybody on this call commits to and prays for all the time, I know. But more immediately and specifically on Wednesday evening as y'all are gathering, what we are going to need is a prayer for divine intervention in the hearts and among the members of this body, that they can get beyond their animus, their anger, the frustration, that we can unify as a group, and that we can navigate our way through this. We will not be able to do it without the Lord's help, because the flesh is, and the mistrust and the sin and everything is so great here that this is going to have to bring people to their knees. And I believe God is about to do something. I'm an optimist. I've been reading Jeremiah 1 all morning, that God is, he knows all this, of course. He's brought us to this point, and I believe that there's a remnant of faithful people, and he'll guide us through. I don't think God is done with America yet.
This could be a time of judgment for America?
Well, I mean, I'd say I'd preach to the choir on this Zoom call, or maybe the honor choir. You all know the terrible state that we're in. The faith in our institutions is the lowest it's ever been in the history of our nation. The culture is so dark and depraved that it almost seems irredeemable at this point. The church attendance in America dropped below 50% for the first time in our history since they began to measure the data 60 years ago, and the number of people who do not believe in absolute truth is now above the majority for the first time. So 1 in 3 teen girls contemplated suicide last year. 1 in 4 high school students identifies as something other than straight. We're losing the country. But at the same time, this is not unprecedented. There's nothing new under the sun, and there have been great civilizations and societies in the past that God has worked through and saved and redeemed when all hope was lost. And there's even been epochs in American history where things were so terrible that we thought that might be the end. But God, right? And so we're the only nation in the history of the world, as G.K. Chesterton has said, that was founded upon a creed. And our creed is listed with theological lucidity in the Declaration of Independence. It's the second paragraph. We hold these truths to be self-evident. The idea was that we knew that our rights came from God, and thus our allegiance and accountability was to him. And we walked away from that. So the question is, 2 Chronicles 7:14, I mean, if my people will humble themselves and pray and turn from their sin, then I will heal their land, right? But are we going to do that? Are we going to be brought to the point where we're humble enough to do that collectively as a people? And then how large is the remnant that he needs to? Is it 10 righteous men in Sodom, as you were texting the other day? I mean, is there a remnant that God would say, okay, I'll redeem the land? I believe that will happen. I believe that God is going to navigate us through this, and the good will come of it. But I don't see the path in this moment. I just know God does, and that's why tonight I'll go to bed no matter what happens and rest my head. If I get 3 hours of sleep, it may be less. But when I do sleep, I'm going to remember the refrain from John Quincy Adams: duty is ours, results are God's. I say it to myself daily. I'll do my duty, and then I'm going to trust the rest to him, and I'm at peace with that.
Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, third in line to the presidency, showing you what white Christian nationalism looks like by using Old Testament scripture that is part of the Hebrew Bible, that Christians are claiming as part of their inheritance, to make it sound like those scriptures are pointing to the justification of Christian nationalism. And in case you missed it, This is what he was referring to. In 2021, a Gallup poll was released that showed that U.S. church membership fell below the majority for the first time. For the first time in our history, less than half of Americans said that they belonged to a church. Now, when I talked about this in 2021, many Christians came out and balked at this and mocked me for sharing it and said that it was because of COVID. This had nothing to do with COVID, because the poll was asking people what church they belonged to. And now you hear it straight from a Christian nationalist leader's mouth that this poll is the kind of data that terrifies them. And they have no trouble at all enforcing their beliefs by using any kind of political warfare that they can to turn us into a Christian nationalist nation. Third in line to the presidency. We are literally minutes away from becoming a Christian fascist nation. This is our time to stay awake, use your voice, and vote.